Have you ever felt like your mind was on fire? Your thoughts racing faster than you can catch them, your heart pounding so loudly that you can't even hear reason, and your anger boiling like a storm about to explode? This was the everyday life of Arman, a young man who seemed to have everything: energy, dreams, friends, and even talent. But there was one problem. He had no control over his emotions. A small mistake by someone else, a tiny disagreement, or even traffic on a hot afternoon could turn him into a volcano ready to erupt. His friends knew this very well. They often whispered to each other, "Careful, don't say anything wrong in front of Arman. You never know when he might burst out." Slowly, they started avoiding him. Not because they didn't care about him, but because his reactions were too much to handle. His anger was like a sharp knife that cut relationships without him even realizing it. One evening, something happened that shook Arman deeply. He got into a heated fight with his closest friend, Bilal. The argument started with something small, about a missed call and late reply, but in minutes, it turned into shouting, blaming, and hurtful words. Arman's voice was loud, his face red with rage, and his fists clenched as if he was fighting a war. Finally, Bilal, who had tolerated Arman's behavior for years, snapped. He looked at Arman straight in the eyes and said, "Arman, your biggest enemy is not me or anyone else, it's you. You lose control so easily that one day you'll lose everyone you love. If you can't control your mind, you'll end up with nothing." Those words hit Arman harder than any insult ever could. Bilal walked away, leaving Arman standing alone, trembling with anger but also with confusion. When the fire inside him settled, he sat in his room replaying those words over and over. If you can't control your mind, you'll lose everything. That night, Arman couldn't sleep. For the first time in his life, he began to question himself. Was his friend right? Had his anger already cost him more than he realized? He thought of the times he had shouted at his parents over small matters, the colleagues who stopped trusting him at work, and the friends who had slowly drifted away. Every memory was like a mirror, showing him the destruction caused not by others, but by his own uncontrolled reactions. Arman realized something powerful in that moment: his true battle was not against the world outside, but against the storm inside his own mind. And unless he learned how to master that storm, he would continue losing the people and opportunities that mattered most. That night, staring at the ceiling in silence, Arman made a decision. He whispered to himself, "I have to change. I have to train my mind." And with that thought, his journey towards calmness and self-mastery began. The next morning, Arman woke up with heavy eyes but a restless heart. He couldn't get Bilal's words out of his mind. For the first time, he saw clearly that his temper had become a cage. He wanted to escape, but he didn't know how. In his town, people often spoke about an old wise teacher named Rahim Baba. Some said he had the patience of the earth itself, others claimed his calm presence could silence even the loudest storms. Arman decided to meet him. When Arman arrived, Rahim Baba was sitting quietly. His white beard glistened in the sunlight, and his eyes carried a strange mixture of kindness and strength. Without saying much, the teacher gestured for Arman to sit beside him. Arman poured out his heart, his temper, his regrets, the words of his friend, and his fear of losing everyone. The teacher listened silently. When Arman finally finished, Rahim Baba smiled and said softly, "You have not lost control of the world, my son, you have only lost control of yourself." Then he handed Arman a cup filled with water. "Take this cup," he instructed, "and walk around the garden without spilling even a single drop." Arman looked at the cup and thought, "That's easy." He began walking slowly, his eyes fixed on the water. He moved carefully, step by step, afraid of wasting even a drop. Birds chirped above him, flowers bloomed with vibrant colors, and children played nearby, but he noticed nothing. His entire world shrank into that fragile cup of water. Finally, after circling the garden, he returned proudly and handed the cup back to the teacher. "I did it," he said with a small smile. Rahim Baba asked, "Tell me, did you see the roses along the path?" "No," Arman admitted. "Did you hear the birds singing above you?" "No." "Did you notice the laughter of the children?" "No, master. I was only focused on the water." The teacher nodded and said, "This is what happens when your mind is filled with anger, fear, or stress. Just like you were only focused on the cup, your mind becomes blind to everything else. You stop hearing, seeing, and feeling the beauty around you. Life is happening, but you are too busy fighting yourself to notice it." Arman lowered his head. For the first time, he understood how his anger had made him blind to the good things in his life. Rahim Baba continued, his voice calm but firm. "The world will not stop being noisy. People will not stop making mistakes. Situations will not always go your way. But you, my son, you can choose how to respond. You cannot control the waves of the ocean, but you can learn how to sail your boat. Calmness is not about changing the world, it is about training your mind to stay steady, no matter what storm comes." Arman felt a strange peace in those words. For years, he had tried to control people and situation around him, but he had never thought of controlling himself. That day, sitting in the quiet garden, Arman promised himself, "I will not fight the world anymore. I will train my mind first." Weeks had passed since Arman's meeting with Rahim Baba, and he had begun practicing the art of calmness. At first it was clumsy. He still got irritated, still felt his blood rushing in anger, but there was now a pause before the explosion. That pause, though small, was powerful. Instead of instantly reacting, he started asking himself, "Do I want to lose my peace over this?" Slowly, that single question began changing him. But life always tests us, and it tested Arman sooner than he expected. At his workplace, a major project was nearing completion. Arman had worked late nights preparing an important report that was crucial for a client presentation. On the morning of submission, disaster struck. A technical error corrupted half the file, making weeks of effort appear incomplete. His manager, already stressed, lost his temper. In front of the entire office, he shouted at Arman, blaming him harshly for negligence. In the past, Arman would have exploded. His pride would not allow him to be humiliated. He would have shouted back, argued, maybe even walked out. But this time was different. The anger did rise in him. His chest tightened, his hands curled into fists, and his heart pounded like a drum. Yet, in that storm, he remembered Rahim Baba's words, "You cannot stop the waves, but you can learn how to sail your boat." Arman closed his eyes for a moment, took a slow deep breath, and steadied himself. When he opened them, his voice was calm. "I understand your frustration, sir," he said softly. "Give me some time. I'll fix this." The room went silent. His colleagues, who had witnessed his fiery temper before, were stunned. Even the manager, expecting resistance, stopped mid-rant. The tension in the air dissolved, replaced with quiet surprise. After everyone left, Arman stayed late into the night. He reconstructed the lost data piece by piece, checked for errors, and even improved the sections that had been weak before. By morning, the report was not only recovered but stronger than before. When the manager saw it, he called Arman privately. His tone was no longer harsh. "I may have been unfair yesterday," he admitted, "but your patience turned a disaster into success. I didn't expect such calmness from you. You've earned my respect." Those words sank deep into Arman's heart. For the first time, he saw the true power of calmness. It wasn't weakness, it was strength greater than anger. When he stayed calm, he didn't just protect himself, he changed the entire situation. From then on, Arman practiced calmness like a daily exercise. In traffic, instead of honking and shouting, he relaxed with music. When people mocked him, he smiled instead of reacting. When problems appeared suddenly, he told himself, if I stay calm, I stay in control. Life had tested him with fire, but instead of burning, Arman learned to shine. Months passed, and Arman's transformation began to show. The once short-tempered young man was now different. His friends noticed it first. They were surprised when he laughed at small mistakes instead of exploding. His colleagues started trusting him more, bringing him into discussions because his calm approach solved conflicts. Even at home, his parents felt the change. The house no longer echoed with arguments, but with peace. But life, as always, had bigger storms waiting. One evening, while traveling back from another city, Arman faced a challenge that would test everything he had learned. Dark clouds gathered, and heavy rain poured down like sheets of glass. The road was slippery, traffic thin, and lightning cracked across the sky. Suddenly, his car engine sputtered and stopped in the middle of a deserted stretch. Arman tried to restart it, but nothing worked. His phone battery was almost dead, the rain was flooding the road, and fear crept into his heart. His old self would have panicked, cursed, and lost control. But this time, he paused. He remembered Rahim Baba's words again, a calm mind sees solutions where a restless mind sees only problems. Taking a slow breath, Arman pushed the car to the side of the road to avoid danger. Instead of wasting his last bit of battery on panic calls, he used it wisely to contact roadside assistance and then sent a quick message to his family. With that done, he switched the phone off to save the little charge left. The storm raged on. Hours passed. The rain soaked him completely, and the cold wind chilled his bones. Yet, Arman did not allow fear to rule him. He sat quietly inside the car, watching the rain, focusing on his breath, reminding himself that panic would not bring help faster. Finally, a vehicle stopped. A man stepped out with tools, smiling. "You're lucky," he said. Many people panic in such situations, leave their cars, wander off, or make mistakes that put them in danger. You stayed calm, and that saved you. Hearing this, Arman felt something shift inside. He realized calmness was not just about avoiding arguments or handling work pressure, it was a shield, a strength that could save lives. It was like being a mountain. Storms could rage, winds could howl, rain could crash down, but the mountain would not move. That night, when he finally reached home, Arman looked at himself in the mirror. His reflection was the same, but the person inside had changed forever. He whispered softly, "Calmness is my true power. No storm can break me now." From then on, he was no longer afraid of problems. Instead of seeing them as enemies, he saw them as storms, storms that could roar, thunder, and rage, but storms that would always pass. And just like a mountain, he would remain standing, tall and unshaken. Arman's life was no longer the same. The storm that once ruled his heart had grown quiet, replaced by a steady strength that others could feel whenever he entered a room. Friends who had once avoided him now sought his advice. At work, he became known as the man who stayed calm under pressure, the one who brought solutions when others brought excuses. At home, his parents looked at him with pride, grateful for the peace he had brought into their lives. But more than what others saw, it was what Arman himself felt that mattered most. For the first time, he was free, not free from problems, but free from being their prisoner. He discovered a secret that many spend their whole lives searching for: true strength lies not in controlling others, but in controlling yourself. One evening, sitting quietly under the same tree where he had first met Rahim Baba, Arman thought deeply about his journey. He remembered the countless times he had lost his temper, the words he had spoken in anger, the relationships he had nearly destroyed. Then he remembered the new moments, the calm smile when things went wrong, the patience that changed outcomes, the peace that allowed him to sleep at night without regret. Rahim Baba joined him, smiling knowingly. "You have learned," he said gently. "But remember, calmness is not a destination, it is a practice. Every day life will test you. Some days you will pass, some days you may stumble. But as long as you return to your center, you will never be truly lost. Arman nodded. He understood now. Calmness was like water. When disturbed, it became muddy and unclear. But when still, it reflected truth with perfect clarity. He realized that the storms of life would never end. People would still make mistakes, challenges would still appear, losses would still come. But he no longer feared them, because he had learned the art of being still inside, no matter how loud the world became outside. From that day onward, he shared his lesson with others. To his friends, he said, "Your peace is your greatest power." To his colleagues, he reminded, "A calm mind sees solutions where panic sees only problems." And to himself, whenever difficulties came, he whispered, "I am the master of my mind, not its slave." So, remember this lesson from Arman's journey: calmness is not weakness, it is the greatest form of strength. It is what makes you unshakable when the world tries to break you. It allows you to turn chaos into clarity, fear into courage, and storms into stepping stones. The next time life pushes you into trouble, don't react blindly. Pause. Breathe. Remind yourself that storms pass, but your strength can remain. Like a mountain standing tall, you too can face anything, if you train your mind to stay calm.